Hey guys, Stock Saturday, and it's been a rather bonkers week. You may have noticed from the title that I have hit a new milestone, which is a little bit surprising. I was sort of nowhere near that last week, and I'll sort of probably have to spend this week explaining a little bit why. I was going to sort of move on to some of my smaller company earnings, but yeah, I think this probably needs a bit more explanation, and I would probably get some questions if I didn't have a look at it. So, yes, this week up 28% or 222,000. Compared to the S&P, obviously it's outperforming that, 1.33% for last week. S&P making a new all-time high, pretty much at the death of Friday afternoon, or 6597, almost 6600, and the Nasdaq broke 24,000, and that is up 1.4% for the week. So there is a bit of froth and happiness in the markets. Some of my sort of stocks here doing reasonably well. Broadcom sort of liking some of the moves that we've had. Oracle doing particularly well. Sort of a very large multi-hundred billion dollar company moving 40%, I think, at one point on the day, saying that they're basically going to double data center revenue every year for 4 years in a row. That sort of seems like very big expectations now to live up to. I'm not sure I would go quite that hard on the guidance if I was them, but there you go. Yeah, some of the other sort of semiconductor stocks have done pretty well. TSMC moving up, Applied Materials moving up a little. Expect they will get a lot of love over the next few years, maybe rather than straight away. And yeah, not a lot of the others making particularly big moves. I didn't buy anything in here this week, but come back to what I bought a little bit later on. Quick little snippet of news as well, in amongst all the sort of earnings and Oracle and FOMC rate cuts and things. I always like to keep an eye on TSMC, of course, because it's a little bit more fundamental to the actual company. And yeah, it was a pretty good month in August, 335 billion. New Taiwan dollars. It's up 33.8%. Last sort of couple of months have been a little bit lower than that, still good months, but yeah, 33.8% is very nice, and that's 2/3 of Q3 now, so you can expect it's going to be a pretty good Q3. Not quite the sort of blowout that we had earlier on in the year, but still very solid. And capex on data centers and AI and things is expected to rise, I believe, 25% next year. So we can expect some solid gains from TSMC, and they're not really at the lofty, super lofty earnings multiples that some of the other semiconductors companies are. So yeah, still like TSMC going forward. So we got the last couple of the Bitcoin miner monthly reports. Hive Digital is looking pretty good, to be honest. Their expansion over the sort of last month or two really starting to come into play. So they mined 203 Bitcoin in July, and this month or August, it was 247. So quite a nice rise. Obviously, difficulty is increasing, so that's not super helpful, but yeah, they're at least increasing hash rate to offset that. They got to 18.5, I think, at the end of the month. Yeah, as of today, global hash rate is 18.5, or their global fleet totals 18.5. Fleet efficiency at 18.5 as well, joules per terahash. So nice and even. And they are still saying 25 exahash by Thanksgiving. So 2.5 months from now. That should be reasonably good, although it only does drop efficiency 1 joule per terahash. So yeah, would have been nice for that to be a little bit lower, but I think they're installing 15 exahash machines roughly. So yeah, that's pretty good. I think projecting how much Bitcoin they're actually going to be mining sort of in after Thanksgiving is maybe a little bit optimistic, and they should maybe be a little bit cautious with difficulty sort of rapidly rising up at the moment. We're expecting another rise on Thursday. This could come down, but they're still saying 12 Bitcoin approximately on after Thanksgiving per month, which should be per day. That should give them a really nice target, and you sort of start comparing them to people like probably CleanSpark, the closest sort of comparison. You could say half the exahash of CleanSpark with not a huge amount of revenue sort of elsewhere. They do, their little bit of AI, but it's not as big as some of the others. So yeah, they're actually sort of looking a little bit more sort of on par proportionally with CleanSpark now. CleanSpark obviously have their 12,000 Bitcoin, where Hive sort of don't have much of anything, and CleanSpark are a lot lower cost electricity. So yeah, they are worth a little bit more of a premium, but I would say sort of both of those could do well if we get a decent move up in Bitcoin. And we got IRENs as well. They came out quite late with this, a little bit sort of surprising, even I think the same day as Hive's pretty much. IREN are sort of sometimes early and sometimes take a little bit of time, but yeah, average operating hash rate 44 exahash, down a little bit from July. I think that's sort of including shutting off for the weather, as they have to. I don't think they get the same sort of deal as Riot, getting revenue back from it, but yeah, that's not the end of the world. So having to sort of shut off a little bit, and with difficulty increasing, they got 668 Bitcoin, down from 728 in July. So yeah, not the end of the world, but this was a little bit disappointing. You notice the asterisk on electricity cost, 32,266, and they've increased this, a revised electricity cost, based on their invoice received post-issue of the July report. So I can't remember what this was, sort of 27,000 or something, and they've said, oh no, actually it was 32,000, so that's not ideal. And then this month it's increased to 38,791, which is starting to sort of creep up quite a bit, really. Hardware profit margin, they were sort of saying was 76%. It was 72 last month and 66 this month. So yeah, this is the main reason I don't really want to be holding Bitcoin miners long term, because you've got countries sort of mining with free electricity basically, or sort of waste electricity, and will put the public miners to shame trying to make a profit out of solely mining. But of course we know IREN are after the AI, AI cloud, and sort of deals with AI companies to sell their land and power. So yeah, we sort of talked about the GPU expansions and bits and pieces before, and that's what they're pushing for. Childress, their sort of main site running at the moment, and then Sweetwater, the one that they're trying to speculatively sort of either sell to other people with power, or sort of maybe build on it themselves, but that would take many, many, many billions of dollars, which I don't think they want to be sort of going through all themselves. Oh, actually, saying that, they do have a little bit of demand response revenue, sort of fees associated with that as well. So it's nowhere near what Riot get, but yeah, they got 1.3 million, it looks like, for a little bit of downtime. And yeah, it makes a little bit of difference, but yeah, nothing like Riot's. So I think what's pushing up the market, and especially crypto miners and gold miners, is sort of expectations of rate cuts, and yeah, this sort of went quite a way to pushing that on. So we got last year an enormous revision down on the job numbers, so you get the non-farm payrolls sort of every month, and then you know, after a year's worth last year, in the Biden era, they said actually there's 811, I think, or 830,000 jobs less than we actually said, which was a sort of horrendous revision downwards. How you can get it quite that wrong, I don't know, but yeah, they've now said in the year prior to March 2025, so March 24, most of that being Biden's time, the election in November, of course, but Trump only actually came in January, late January 2025, so 2 months of his and 10 months of Biden's. They're saying there was 911,000 jobs less in that year, so you're talking 1.7, 1.8 million jobs less than they said, and that was sort of the reason they gave for there not being a recession in 2022, because we did have 2 negative quarters of GDP, and they said, yeah, but the job market is really, really strong. And sort of similarly in, you know, 23, 24, it was like, yeah, the economy isn't doing that well, but jobs are really, really strong. And yeah, it looks like they weren't, basically. So this has suddenly sort of got people thinking, well, actually the market's pretty weak, and we could do with a rate cut or 2 or 3, it's looking like. So it looks like 3 are now priced in for by the end of the year. And what I think is moving the crypto miners, or at least the hybrid, I call them crypto miners, the ones with sort of AI focus, and the ones that haven't gone all in on Bitcoin, basically. So your Clean Sparks and your Marathons, yeah, then they're sort of doing okay with Bitcoin going up, but you've got people like IREN, Cypher, TerraWolf, and sort of 1 or 2 others, Galaxy, are sort of rocketing up on these sort of deals. Nebius is a sort of CoreWeave competitor from the looks of it, and have done a very, very large deal with Microsoft. Their stock soared nearly 50%, and yeah, it's basically a long deal for Nebius to provide them with AI capacity, which from the looks of it, Nebius don't actually have. They will be sort of securing that over the time of this contract. So obviously people are thinking the crypto miners could potentially get a part of this deal. You know, you've had Core Scientific doing a deal with Core Scientific. People are now potentially thinking that there could be a minor deal with Nebius. They were spun out of Russian internet giant Yandex in 2023, so it's sort of not obviously jumping into bed with the Russians because they've been split off, but yeah, that's where it came from. And they have a deal with Microsoft worth up to $19.4 billion. So that's a hell of a figure. 17.4 billion through to 2031. So it's not that long. It's a 6-year deal, 5-year deal. So probably once it's getting up to speed. And yeah, Nebius shares climbed 60% in extended trading and continued up Tuesday. CoreWeave went up sort of in sympathy, in parallel as they call it. And yeah, everyone's extremely excited for the hybrid miners now. So, my IREN position, what exactly has happened? I think this is just the case of a little bit of luck. Obviously, I was looking into the company and sort of fundamentals and everything, but I just happened to be looking into it at around this time, March, April, May time, and sort of caught that really, really well. Obviously, I had my Clean Spark position and Riot and Hive positions. They were sort of doing okay, and I sort of had some options for January 2026 time, so around about here. But I decided to take a load of IREN positions as well, sort of bought in a little bit, and then sort of things were still looking very promising, so I sort of bought a little bit more over April, a little bit more over May, and kind of then stopped as it started rising. So obviously I bought a little bit of stock in the ISA, but I also bought the options, which are where sort of the bulk of this money has come from. So I was largely buying January, sort of end of December and January options, betting essentially that the price would go above $20, and some of them $25. So sort of sitting around about here at the end of January. So when the stock is at $5, I think I got mostly in when it was about $6, sort of $6 to $7. A $20 target does seem quite lofty in, 7 or 8 months. And a $25 target seems, almost impossible. So you can get the options incredibly cheap down at this level. We all know sort of crypto miners and crypto itself can go a bit bonkers in a very short space of time. So, yeah, I thought, that is certainly possible. And I sort of I don't think I did a spreadsheet on IREN publicly, but I sort of did similar on Hive and CleanSpark and people like that on, the thesis of how it gets there at various Bitcoin prices. But I wasn't quite anticipating the AI surge that we got. I kind of thought, I'd be buying IREN sort of for above 20 and 25 on the basis that we'd be at 150,000 Bitcoin, 180,000 maybe on the high end, and I was sort of thinking it could get to $35, maybe $50, sort of by that time, and I would have the difference between sort of $20 or $25 and 35 to 50, and that would be a nice gain. Obviously, we've had the AI side of things rather overtake everything because Bitcoin's still at 115. They do make a little bit of, I say a little bit of money off that, not that much. IREN make more than the rest. And yeah, the AI side has taken over, and we've already got to $33. So it being the options being a $20 strike, those are already sort of $14 nearly in the money. You've got $14 worth of easy value. I could execute the options now and buy the stock at $20 and sell it for $34 immediately. So you make that profit. That's called intrinsic value now because there's already $14 in it. Extrinsic value is sort of how much people think it could go up from there, basically. And yeah, the $25 have some intrinsic value, and there isn't that much being priced into them, to be honest. There's only sort of $2 expected more, really. So people still aren't, or people are still getting a little bit, thinking it's close to the top. So every sort of dollar that it goes up, you do get a lot more gain. Where if people were sort of massively excited about it, they might still be sort of pricing in $5-10 above the current price. So that is interesting. But that is essentially what has happened. It was a very, very well timed buy, and obviously my other stocks I haven't timed quite so well, but that is why it's such a big percentage gain, as you'll see in the portfolio. So Equinox Gold has been another very, very solid gainer for the last 2 or 3 weeks at least, rocketing up. You can sort of see, 2023 time onwards, it had just been somewhat trickling up, sort of upwards trend. Gold absolutely rocketing, and Equinox sort of underperforming that gain. So I had, I think, sort of 2023 and 2024 time, I was buying January 2026, so around this time, options for them to go above $10, mostly. I think I had some June 2025 ones which have expired worthless, so that wasn't ideal, but yeah, you live and learn. That was sort of, I think, about £800, £1,000 lost. So yeah, that is the risk that you take with these options. You put, you can buy the options. The stock has gone up, and I've lost everything on those ones that I bought. Where you could have just held the stock and would now be very, very nicely up on those. But the other options that I bought, being sort of January $10, they were looking okay, but I was starting to get a little bit nervous when the stock was still around here. I think this was sort of early 2025. That I would need more time, and 2025 wasn't going to be the best year for Equinox, so I decided to take a little bit of a hit, I suppose. I sold the January 2026 $10, and I bought the January 2027 $12.50. So paid a little bit more because you pay a little bit more to have all of that time. Basically, you've seen what some of these stocks can do in a relatively short space of time. So giving yourself another year, you do have to pay up a little bit more for it, and to sort of get a reasonable price, I had to add another $2.50 to the target. But as you can see, sort of it can go up in that time. So I wanted to give myself a decent amount more time, and now sort of with gold where it is, Equinox sort of improving and potentially, getting a little bit more love as some of the other miners are getting. People like Agnico Eagle has just absolutely rocketed. They're sort of very, very low cost miner in all solid jurisdictions. So yeah, they get a hell of a lot of love. But yeah, Equinox has suddenly, obviously because I've got a year and 5 months to run, and now the stock has done this, people are expecting a lot more over the next year and 4 months. So the options are starting to get priced quite nicely, and I'm up, I think it's provided about £50,000 of the gain, including the in the ISA. So yeah, very very nice on Equinox. But you can see what you have to sort of live through over the years, and sometimes sort of make some adjustments and extend them, and sometimes have some go to zero even though the stock is rising. And Hive Digital is sort of I would say a very, very interesting stock. So I wasn't sort of in it back in 2021, I don't think anyway. I'd have to look back. I always think I was more just in Argo blockchain, and that all sort of obviously went very, very badly. And I was sort of doing the similar thing with Equinox, really, sort of buying mid 2025. I think I even bought some January 2025, and they didn't go that well. I certainly bought some June 2025, sort of $7 and $10, thinking that Bitcoin would sort of already be, maybe 130, 140, and difficulty wouldn't have increased quite so much. I thought Hive would be relatively profitable by now, but yeah, it seems to need a lot more of a gain. So those June ones that I bought, again, about £1,000 worth, expired worthless. So just a reminder, you have to, if you want to get into this sort of thing, you have to be willing to take the loss and either sort of write it off and move on, or go again and see where it ends up. But yeah, this is a very interesting one now. So sort of in the somewhat in the lows, and sort of I think around sort of end of 2025, early sort of or end of 2024, early 25 time, I bought a load of sort of $3.50, $4, and some $5 calls for the January 26 on Hive. So the stock was about $2. So again, $3, $5 even was seeming like maybe a strong target. It'd be a double in less than a year, sort of 9 months or so. And the stock has now, if I sort of give myself a little bit more perspective on the chart, the stock has now suddenly gone up a bit. So people are a little bit more optimistic that it could do well. But looking at sort of where we are, I've got $4, $5 strikes by the end of the year. So people are now expecting it could easily push through those in the next few months. What I also have is still a hell of a lot of January $10 strikes. So those are still in a big loss. And yeah, you'll see my position. It's sort of quite heavily in profit now, but those particular ones are still in the red because, you know, even though it's $3.81 now, $10 in a few months, that's almost a triple. Seems a little bit lofty, but they are rapidly rising with, you know, with the stock rising sort of 20% in a week. So yeah, interesting position. I've held those for quite a while, and unlike Equinox, it's not something that I want to sort of extend another year into 2027 because I'm not that optimistic on the Bitcoin miners longer term, especially for a sort of mostly a pure play like Hive. And the options profit calculator, yeah, you can sort of go on every now and then. It sort of gives you a little bit of an idea as to how you know, how these prices work and how the price of them can change over time. So I put in IREN here. It's obviously at $33.95 now, and I said if you bought a $20 January 2026 call, that would be, and I paid 35 cents, so it'd be $35 because it times 100 shares. Admittedly, this isn't giving you the whole picture because I bought them back in January, back in sort of April time, but sitting at where we are now, yeah, it's sort of stock's $33, so some of those are sitting at this percentage gain. So 4,166 percent gain, or sort of 42 times my initial stake. That's how crazy some of these things have gone. So if it stays there sort of all the way until January, you can see this sort of decay as, you know, there's less and less chance of it going beyond that, and it would eventually sit there at 36 times gain, or, you know, you're getting sort of 12 for the $20 ones, you're getting $13 of gain for that time, and that would be 36x gain on my initial purchase. If I change this to profit and loss, yeah, that's $1,265 in profit per contract. So yeah, that's how those things can sort of, obviously you lose a little bit of money over time. If you were sort of looking at like $17, say the stock was at $17, they would be sitting at $288 because there's still, you know, 4 months to go and excitement that it could go much, much higher. But you can see as time goes on, if the stock was still $17 and you're wanting it to go above 20, then it starts to decay and decay and decay, and eventually, sort of with 4 weeks to go, you go negative, and then yeah, so that's minus $35 for the $35 you originally paid, and yeah, if we look at sort of percentage gain, you know, you'd be 8x back in September when it's the stock's $17, because there's still excitement that it could go up in the 4 months, and it drops, you know, over the 4 months to 600% gain, 400% gain, 100% gain with sort of 4 or 5 weeks to go, and 20% loss, 77% loss, and then you lose everything at the expiry because it is still $17, so that's worthless. So you can see sort of how the excitement obviously dissipates, and that money goes to nothing with the options, even with the stock staying exactly where it is. Obviously now the stock is rapidly going up, you get into, you know, these sort of crazy percentages. So you can sort of play around with this and see, you know, how things can go. So just looking at some economic news for the week, we had not a lot Monday or Tuesday. Wednesday there was PPI. Everyone was sort of very excited about that, hoping it would come in a little bit lower. It sort of rocketed up last month, and that was revised down 0.9%. It was revised down to 0.7. It was seeming a little bit of an anomaly, abnormally high, and I think I sort of mentioned it was partly down to portfolio managers' sort of fees, because the stock market was at all-time high. So that's not really feeding into inflation, but it is included in PPI. And we got a reasonable undershoot. It was expected to be 0.3%. It was minus 0.1 for the month. So yeah, everyone excited about that. People normally say PPI is a leading indicator of CPI. So that being negative sort of got everyone a little bit excited. Thursday, EU left their interest rates as they were, not unsurprising. And then CPI, again, a lot of excitement, although the CPI came in roughly on expectations, no revisions to previous month, and headline on the monthly was slightly higher than expected. But you got 263,000 initial jobless claims. So yeah, that was seen as slightly worrying, even though continuing was down, or was lower than expected, same as last month. So yeah, that was pretty much it. Not a lot on Friday. So the ISA is doing rather well, and I decided to start spending some of this cash. So I had 20,000 in cash sat here, and I've got enough to pay off the mortgage. So decided to start deploying some of this. Obviously, some of the bigger holdings are doing well. Kua Mining up to 71,000 now. That's very nice. Fresneo, £21.62. That's extremely nice. And yeah, some of the others are pushing on. As we said, IREN up to 33.96. I think it broke sort of mid 34s yesterday. And Equinox doing quite well. But the buys, I've bought back into Sylvania Platinum, seeing some sort of rises in the rhodium and even ruthenium, one of their smaller metals that they produce. But I didn't realise it has now risen quite a bit, and it's sort of 20. I think it said 20% of their output. So that is quite a lot. It's, it's pretty much as palladium. So if I've got those numbers correct, I think it was. I will double check. But yeah, ruthenium, I didn't realise, is quite an important part in hard drives, which is being used for AI. So the big hyperscalers building these massive data centers, they need somewhere to store all of this data. There's massive amounts of data, and they're not going to put it on solid state drives because it's just inefficient. I'm sure they would love to, but yeah, they end up putting it on hard drives, and they're using ruthenium to to sort of upgrade these from the hard drives of old. So strangely, Sylvania Platinum, obviously I was mainly thinking the industrial use is still petrol and diesel cars, so you don't hold it super long term. But yeah, there is sort of potentially a bit of gain in there, and I think ruthenium has doubled just in the last year. So that's looking pretty good, and also getting quite a lot of use in hybrid cars. So hybrids, a lot of people don't realise, you'd think they use less than a petrol and diesel car, less platinum and palladium and rhodium, but strangely enough, even though they have a smaller engine, because you're constantly turning that engine off and on, they need more because the engine is cold. So when you see Chinese sort of EVs, often that includes the hybrids, and it's not just electrical. So yeah, hybrids playing into that, and petrol and diesel cars not sort of going away as quick as people would like. So yeah, I think there's room for Sylvania Platinum. It hasn't risen up quite as much as the metals from the looks of it. So bought back into that, a little bit of diversification. back into Samsung Electronics. They're looking pretty good. I think there's plenty of room for them and TSMC on the semiconductor side. They did just sign a new deal with Tesla for, I think, $16 billion to make chips for their cars, I believe. So, yeah, they should do well. And obviously you've got the sort of consumer electronics, the phones and everything. That sort of kind of just chugs along. But I'm really in it for the semiconductor side, the memory chips and the compute chips. So we'll see. Can't really show a lot of their metrics because this isn't a proper ticker from the looks of it. I had to put the figures in manually, so we'll have to update that. I bought Prologis, a sort of warehouse and potentially it's looking like data center REIT. So I've kind of always wanted to get into them. A little bit more of a steady stock. Not expecting massive gain from that, but just a steady rise and a dividend. Similarly with Alexandria Real Estate, they sort of have medical campuses basically for sort of research and these tenants, the big pharmaceutical companies, they buy long term and yeah, they're looking pretty good. Decent sort of price to funds from operations. Very, very low, in fact, sort of nearly half of what Prologis are, and they're building their largest lease building ever. So, yeah, looking pretty good, I thought. So that was pretty much it for the buys, about 12, 13,000, and and I bought during the dip I bought a little bit more Hive, and yeah, that's sort of turned out reasonably well. They've started rocketing up just after I bought, so yeah, still thinking they could sort of do well for the rest of the cycle. I was up on the stock, but decided to just go in with a little bit more, and that's gone reasonably well so far. But I may sort of sell that out and take a little bit of that gain sooner than the rest. We have the Interactive Brokers account. I forgot to put these in here. I've had this for a few weeks now, a good few weeks. Hive Digital, I've been obviously getting dividends from KGHM and Pan American. Not so much from KGHM actually. I think they've maybe done one since I bought the stock, but mostly Pan American, and I've been putting all the dividends into Hive just because it's in the ISA, and I thought need to buy something with it, and yeah, thought might as well do that. So they're looking pretty good at the moment, 37% up. Yeah, looking very nice, and Pan American and KGHM both sort of trickling up. ISA's at 37.5 now. It was at 30 not so long ago, so looking good. And then obviously, yes, the option side. I have sold 60 IREN contracts. I was at 300, and then last week I said I'd sold a bit, and I was down to 260. Now down to 200, but the number is significantly up even despite that. So yes, things are going remarkably well, and it's up sort of an average of 38x, so very, very nice. Hive, I haven't sold any yet. I'm sort of pondering doing so, but it's up tremendously. This was in the red last week and is now 95% up. Equinox was doing pretty well last week and has increased that, 95% up. So very, very nice. Again, sort of just a few weeks ago, I think this was in the red. So looking pretty good. Kua Mining just sort of slightly extending its gain. I think this was 19x, now 21x. Still sort of waiting for a little bit more of a move on silver. A little bit of froth in the stock maybe, and I'll take some more off the table. Riot is still in the red, but that red has dropped down quite considerably. They still need an AI deal really. Some of these options are for $35 by January, and the stock's $16. So yeah, that's why they are in the red basically. The sort of $20 ones, $20 strike ones are obviously looking a little bit more likely and are nearly in the green, but I was buying them a bit higher up. Cypher, again, was sort of similarly timed to IREN, a little bit after IREN, so they are doing pretty well. 12x, ridiculous numbers compared to ordinary stocks, but yeah, that's options. You've got CleanSpark, bought not at the same time. I think not that dissimilar a time though, to be honest. And obviously they've got no AI love, so that's $20 actually by November, not January. So that's just seen as almost impossible. 77% down. I'm sort of just expecting to lose all of that really. Oh, and Himax has sort of reduced slightly for the week, but still I think potential there. And from selling a load of IREN, I haven't actually done anything with it just yet. I did buy a little bit of KGHM, quite a bit actually. I was at 330 shares, now at 480. Still think they look really good, and looking for more to do with this cash. I'll probably move some of it into Trading212 just to save on those fees. So we'll see. So leave your thoughts in the comments below. A little bit of a long video this week, but I thought it was necessary. And like and subscribe. See you soon.